Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. President. Division 7, Gary Van Dam. Division 6, Audrey Miller. Here. Division 5, Robert Paris.
Here.
Division 4, George Lane.
Here.
Division 1, Shelley Sourceable.
Here.
Division 3, Frank Donato.
Here.
Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Wayne Chisholm.
Here.
Kim,
Here.
and Holly Hughes present.
Thank you very much. Item 3, voluntary public roll call. If any member of the public wishes to introduce themselves, please feel free to do so now.
Vincent Dino, Palmdale Water District.
Hi, Vince.
Thank you, Cassette. Evening.
Hey, John.
Good evening, Keith and board. This is John George.
Antec Consulting.
Thank you.
Jack Cephas, White Fence 3.
Thank you.
Good evening, Keith and board. This is John Joyce reporting for the Roseman News.
If there are no more, we will move along to item 4, public comments and period open to the public. If anyone wishes to address the board on any item not on tonight's agenda, please feel free to do so now. If there are no public comments, we'll move along to item 5. Do I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
This is Director Sourceable. I'll move to approve.
Thank you.
This is Director Donato. I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes.
Shelley Sourceable.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you. Item 6, consent calendar. I'm told that staff has requested that we remove item 6A6. So can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar without 6A-6?
What is 6A-6?
It is approval to advertise for competitive bids. High Desert Water Bank Stage 1 and Stage 2 recharge system improvements.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll make that motion. This is Director Sourceable.
Thank you.
This is Director Miller. I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes.
Shelley Sourceable.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you. Item 7A, public hearing number 2 for Avek's local hazard mitigation plan. At this time, I would like to open the hearing, and can we have a roll call vote, please?
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes.
Shelley Sourceable.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you. And now I would like to ask for a presentation by staff.
Yes, this item will, Justin Lipsey, the engineering manager, will present on this particular item.
Great. Thank you, General Manager Chisholm. Good evening, President Dias and members of the board. Tonight we are having public hearing number 2 for Avek's local hazard mitigation plan. Our consultant, Russ Patterson, should be on the line this evening to answer any questions that might come up, but this should be fairly brief. As a matter of background, here on our first slide, Avek has been working with R.E. Patterson and Associates to develop the agency's first local hazard mitigation plan over the last 6 months or so. after developing the draft local hazard mitigation plan with Avek stakeholders and input from our planning committee, the board held public hearing number 1 on the draft plan back on October 26, 2021. During that public hearing, there were no comments received from the public or the board of directors. And subsequent to that, the draft was made available through Avek's website and a notification in the Antelope Valley Press of the availability of the draft local hazard mitigation plan. That notice was made available and the plan was posted for a period of a little over 30 days. And that was from November 24th, 2021 through the end of the year. During that time period, comments were encouraged from the public and other local agencies. No comments were received during that period of time. And as such, no comments were needed to be incorporated into the current draft of the local hazard mitigation plan, which was made available prior to tonight's meeting by the board of directors. So as a matter of process, we're holding public hearing number 1 to see if there are any additional comments that need to be made from the public or the board of directors. And those comments would then be incorporated into another iteration of the plan, which would be sent to California Office of Emergency Services, or Cal OES, for their review and comment, and then finally on to FEMA for their review and comment. Once those are received and all comments are incorporated into the plan, we would bring the final plan back to the board for final adoption and then final acceptance by FEMA. And so at this point, that's really the end of this presentation. And I believe we have an opportunity for public comments at this time.
Yes, thank you, Justin. At this time, is there anybody in our public that would like to make a comment on the proposed local hazard mitigation plan? If there are no public comments, are there any comments from our board of directors? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing at 5:38. Thank you very much.
Roll call.
And now we'll move along to item 7B, High Desert Water Bank and Water Bank Resources Committee.
Board President Dias, we need to have a roll call vote to close the public hearing.
Oh, yes, a roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passed. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for calling the roll. And now we'll move along to item 7B, High Desert Water Bank and Water Bank Resources Committee. Chairman Donato, do you have a report?
Yes. Well, we're going to be considering possible action on task order number 1 of Kennedy Jenks on-call construction management services agreement for the High Desert Water Bank, the turn-in, turn-out project for $345,788. And I'm going to turn this over to Justin and let him, the engineering manager, Justin, to elaborate what's going on here.
All right. Thank you, Director Donato. Good evening again. So a little bit of background here. On November 30th, 2021, the board authorized staff to execute an agreement with Kennedy Jenks for on-call construction management support for various construction packages associated with the High Desert Water Bank. These are the turnout, the grading, the wells, all the various packages to make the High Desert Water Bank a working facility. The first such construction package, which is the Aqueduct Turnout, Turn-In project, was recently awarded to Blois Construction on January 25th, 2022. And that would be the first package needing support under this as-needed agreement. Kennedy Jenks provided a scope of work and fee for their support, which would become task order number 1 under this as-needed contract. And the scope for that work includes typical construction management services necessary to keep the construction project on schedule, ensure the construction is consistent with plans and specifications as designed, mitigate any potential change orders from the contractor, and document the construction activities while they're being undertaken for the purposes of tracking and reporting. The proposed fee for these services is $345,788, which was based on the rates which were approved by the board in the master agreement. This fee is within a reasonable range expected for a construction project with this level of complexity and coordination required. This is a complex turnout and coordinating with the Department of Water Resources. And so with that...
Yeah, just one question
yes,
before we move on, but it had the proposed fee. That's the fixed fee, Kennedy Jenks?
Yes, it is.
Does there have to be change orders in that where we're going to be paying more?
No, that should be it. Yeah,
okay.
That's based on the hours that they included into their scope and the rates that were previously approved.
If there's more hours, is that what happens?
Yeah, if construction ends up taking longer for some reason, which is a huge part of their interaction with the contractor under this contract would be to try to keep that contractor on schedule, then they would stay within their fee. If the contract was extended via a change order from the contract, their fee would need to be adjusted as well.
So if it's extended, it makes sense. They're going to be paying maybe some additional, but as long as it's in this time frame, that's what it'll be.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Good question. So if there are no further questions, the recommendation from the High Desert Water Bank Committee and staff would be that the board authorize task order 1 with Kennedy Jenks for construction management services for the aqueduct turnout in the amount of $345,788.
Okay, this is Director Donato. I move on 7B1 that we authorize staff to pay KJ.
Director Lane, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any more discussion or questions? If not, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Pierce,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to item 7B2. This one's considered possible action on an award of the contract for well drilling package number 2 for High Desert Water Bank project HDWB 21-02. Bakersfield Well and Pump Company came in, I believe, at the lowest bid at $9,627,820. And again, we'll have Justin elaborate on that as well.
All right, thanks again, Director Donato. So well drilling package number 2 was placed out to bid on December 8th, 2021. This well drilling package follows on the first 4 recovery wells, which were recently completed by Pacific Coast Well Drilling. And this package consists of 4 to 6 recovery wells and a piezometer array. The recovery wells would be drilled to a pilot hole depth of 1,150 feet, very similar to the first set of 4 wells which were drilled out there successfully. And for some orientation, we have our map of the High Desert Water Bank located here on the screen. These, I guess I'll start with the yellow. These yellow stars up here indicate the locations for the first 4 pilot recovery wells, which were completed. And the aqua stars represent the locations of the 6 recovery wells which would be drilled under this contract, as well as a monitoring piezometer located here in the southeast corner of the site. So you can see spatially they're spread throughout the location of the High Desert Water Bank. Bids were received from 2 well drillers on January 19th, 2022. We got bids from Best Drilling and Pump out of Colton, California, and Zim Industries, DBA Bakersfield Well and Pump, is better known to us, out of Bakersfield, California, You can see the bids there. The low bid was received from Bakersfield Well and Pump, the amount of $9,627,820. The engineer's estimate for this project was $10,750,000. So both of these bids were just below the engineer's estimate. And Bakersfield Well and Pump does currently hold an active C57 well drilling license, and they previously have worked for the agency drilling wells at our West Side Water Bank and had done so successfully. So we have 2 good contractors and 2 good prices. And the recommendation from the High Desert Water Bank Committee and staff would be that the board award a construction contract for the High Desert Water Bank well drilling package number 2 to Bakersfield Well and Pump for their low bid amount of $9,627,820.
How many people received bid packages?
It was publicly advertised. So it was advertised on our website and through the Kern County Builders Exchange.
How many pulled plans, you know?
I think there were 5 well driller contractors that pulled plans for this project.
Thank you.
Justin, I got a question. George, are you done?
Yes.
I have a question. Now,
Yes.
we ran into this a little bit. I saw what your estimate was, or the engineer's estimate was. It was around 10 million something. But the question I think the board needs to know, and I just want to see if I'm saying this right, that when they get out there, there could be some change orders that could increase the price. Is that possible?
Yeah, that's possible. We did discuss this at the committee level, and the bid is done on a unit price per linear foot of like borehole drilling, for example. So the price is the contractor's price per linear foot. If they drill less feet than that, then their contract price would reflect the lower amount. And on the alternate side, as you just mentioned, if they drill deeper, then their contract would be adjusted as necessary on that per unit cost.
Does it have anything to do with the material the drilling, if they get in a hard pan or clay? Is that part of the?
Yeah, that could be a part of it.
It's not going to be
well.
less, but it could be more.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Well, the pilot hole probably will be what the pilot hole is. That won't go any deeper. When it comes to screening of the casing and things like that, that could be adjusted based on the geology, what they find under the surface as they're drilling.
So this price is based upon what type of material? I mean, if you get into a different type of material, it could be more during the drilling process?
Yeah, I think Joe or Dwayne, do you want to?
Yeah, I don't think it has to do with the material that per se. It just has to do with feet that they drill. Okay. And what Justin's is referencing is because we have an on-site geologist that's out there pulling the materials and examining the materials, and they determine where the best water-bearing formations are, and they put the screens in those locations. And those aren't exactly known until they actually drill it. So there's oftentimes to get the best well, you need to adjust those to get to the best yield.
But the point I was trying to make is you're sand versus clay. But
no, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter on the material. Yeah.
And then just to add on to that, out of the first 4 I'm sorry, this is Joe Long from Stantec. Out of the first 4 pilot wells that were actually drilled, we didn't run into any hard pan or any difficulty drilling out in the areas. So we're pretty comfortable we won't run into that. So there's no reason to have a material adjustment in the bid.
Well, I brought this up because the committee had questioned some change orders and how it was explained in front of the entire staff, and our contractor basically stated that when you're in the field, if they determine they need to go further down, because of time, we're not going to be able to come back to the board and ask basically our commission to go further if it means we're going to get better quality water. So we saw some bills come in, and I questioned it, and they had to explain in detail what that meant. So I told them that as a board member, I don't like change orders at all, unless it's something very necessary to make the project better.
Mr. Donato, let me also clarify that just a bit. The change that you saw on the first one was to actually extend the well casings into a deeper zone where we saw benefits from pumpable water. So those are one things that have to be made on a very quick decision from the design team and also the hydrogeologist. And the other issue that we ran into, which required a change order, was also the material of the packing, or I'm sorry, the annular space gravel packing, which we have actually identified which gravel pack we're going to use, which is readily available as we know right now.
Is there a timeline? Excuse me. Is there a timeline on these wells? Time frame?
As far as the construction schedule?
Yes.
Yes, there is. And Justin, please remind me exactly what we landed on for construction days.
I would have to double check that, Joe. I believe they've got about 8 months or so. Does that sound right to you, Joe?
Yeah, it does. I can pull this back up real quick.
Yeah.
The committee looked that over, and then how deep are these wells?
The pilot hole on these wells is going to be drilled to 1,150 feet.
Now, do we think we're going to get recharged from that depth? My God, I just can't believe it.
Well, the pump setting of the wells will be shallower than the 1150, and the screening material is going to depend on.
Maybe other people have, but I mean that's extremely deep. I just haven't. Gary, what does that seem like to you, Gary? You probably have the most experience.
Yeah, I would say. Well, first of all, the blue clay's at what, 550 out there, something like that.
Actually, we had, I think this was discussed at the committee level as well, and there were no signs of what was known as the blue clay out in that vicinity.
Okay. Well, what about the high arsenic levels down in the lower basin?
Mm-hmm. The first 4 pilot recovery wells that were drilled out there had zone sampling and depth-specific sampling done. And it did not appear, based on those samples, that arsenic varies greatly with depth, which is exactly what we saw at the West Side Water Bank. We saw a big change from shallow to deep with respect to arsenic concentrations. But at the High Desert Water Bank, it was very consistent. We saw ranges from 11 to about 19 spread across the site, but not much of a variation with depth.
What determined the 1100 versus 500 or 600? I just can't imagine we're going to recharge that anytime soon. And I'm sure there's some studies done. So
yeah,
just enlighten me a little bit, please.
This is Wayne. George, they in the first 4 wells, they were able to drill to that depth, and when they test pumped the wells, they were able to get good quantities, close to 1,800 gallons per minute at that particular depth.
Could you have got on to 600?
We could have got it at 600, but it would have required more wells to be drilled, and because of the site and the location, getting more volume per well is a better design for this particular site.
But again, this is water that's going to be recharged. Is it?
Yes, and we will receive. There will be water that will get to that. We don't have to, when we pump water, we don't have to get the exact molecules out, but we do need. There's a whole hydraulic study that will be done to identify exactly where all that water is going.
Do we have a water zone starting at so many feet? And is this, I've heard sometimes you talked about a second basin. Is this a second basin, or is there water the whole depth of the well?
Well, I'd have to defer to the hydrogeologist. Maybe the best thing for us to do with this would be to next time we have that once we get that information available, we can provide that to you with regards to those.
Then this high price of power, about 1,100 feet, versus we're gonna, if it was less than that, we'd have to have additional wells, but the cost of pumping, that's another question. What's it going to
Right,
cost to
right.
pump an acre foot from 1,100 feet?
Yes, and those analysis were performed by the hydrogeologist and the engineering firm in order to get the most water for the least amount of expense.
Maybe that's something I can imagine we could go ahead today, but I think it'd be good to have a presentation.
Yeah, I agree. Let's once we get all the information from the four wells, and we can put together a presentation with what we see with the hydrogeology and the water services.
I think
was one thing I do recall. I think I remember is that the modeling that they used was coming off of the Tejon wells. I think some of those wells went down 900 feet to get the kind of water they were getting.
Correct.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Correct, Frank. You're correct. There were Tejon wells that were equally as deep, just adjacent.
Yeah, so that would need to be some of those when the committee met and went over all this stuff, which the board didn't have a chance. I would include the modeling of the wells they had, as well as the domestic wells in the area, so that way that board could see how far the Tejon wells to some of the other big wells that were down.
Right, and the committee had a good presentation from the hydrogeology team and the engineering team with regards to this method. But we can certainly take that same presentation and bring it back for the full board.
Some of those wells are those alfalfa wheels just on the other side of the aqueduct from our property. They were producing over 2,000 gallons a minute.
That takes a pretty good, your drawdown at 2,000 gallon a minute, it's got to be a pretty good drawdown. That's one thing George hit on. If we went 600 feet, Dwayne, and then put a test pump down there and then saw what our drawdown was, would that be a better approach than just going with these deep wells?
We've already gone through with the previous 4 wells that we've drilled. We've gone through all the drawdown tests and the test pumping. So all that information is available. So we're building on that information for the 6 new wells.
And I'll take it that's correct, but we have something before as the board we need to vote on, and we're relying upon someone else, and we don't have that information to make a judgment on. So, we get to this point, and that's really happened before, and we're supposed to make an informed decision, without the information we should have. So, I think we need that.
Right. See, George, most of the ag wells on the east side years ago were all drilled in before the blue clay, which is about 550 feet. Very seldom would they go through the blue clay down to lower aquifer.
Yeah. There's and the cost involved with it. I mean, we don't know how it was calculated.
Could we ask Joe Long to explain why we are drilling so much deeper than the water table?
You sure can. Now, I'm not a hydrogeologist, and unfortunately our hydrogeologist is not on the phone, but the higher producing water-bearing areas are below our pump settings, and our pump settings are set at 800 feet. So when you start operating all of these wells, we're going to have a drawdown that will pull the water down below, more than likely down below 600 feet, close to 700 feet. So we want to be able to pull the majority of the water be coming out below our pump settings, so it'll be producing from that lower aquifer. If we cut that off, we would actually run into a position when we finish our recharge operations, we've now filled up what we call the vadose zone, and that's the area between ground surface and the natural groundwater condition. Once we pump all of that out, we would be we would no longer be able to pump any more deeper if the wells were basically cut off at 600 feet. So these wells would become inoperable. And that's actually that has happened quite a bit on Bakersfield's water banks, semi-tropic and both Rosedale, Rio Bravo. They've had to drop their wells considerably deeper. So by doing these first sets of wells, these first 10 wells, down to 1,200 feet, that provides additional information for the groundwater model. And there may be a potential in the future that we shallow some of these wells up towards the center of the well field. And the center of the well field is north of B Street and B Street and A8 out there now. So there's a possibility as we refine the modeling as we go into this. But like I said, if you cut the well off at 600 feet and you draw down to 600, these wells would become inoperable and they would have no feed from the bottom.
This, again, maybe appreciate what you're saying to an extent, but I understand that we're not pumping the exact molecules, but this is supposed to be, water recharged. And if we recharge it down to 1,100 feet, I'm not sure if there is a clear layer, but we're going to have to pay to get it out that 1,100 feet. And you talked about you're not completely familiar with everything we're talking about. We have the geologist not there, but when we're voting on almost a $10 million contract, they should be here. We need a proper presentation, and I don't think we've had one.
I want to interfere. I held back. I've told staff, I'm going to say it again right now, that we're paying KJ over $1 million to be our contractor. Every single one of them, when we have a board meeting like this, we need to have PowerPoints available for the other 4 members of the board and of course the public to see what the hell they're talking about. We don't have say that, sorry, they're not here, they're not there. That's irresponsibleness on management and our consultant. The 3 of us in the committee do the best job we can to relay this information on with the staff. But listen, guys, we're not in grammar school, and we're not drawing pictures in our brain to people that haven't even heard the presentation. So I think from this point going forward, if we don't have the people on board, we don't need to give the presentation to the rest of the 4, because I want to see what Gary and George just asked, because I in my mind, I kind of remember on my 8 to 10 committee meetings I have what is going on. But they have a valid point. You got $10 million here we're going to vote on, and we have nothing against the gentleman who just tried to become a hydrologist, but you know what? We need some pictures, and we need to have the management of Avek and our consultants work together so when we're asking for these things, and also properly represent our partner, Metropolitan Water District, we better have our facts and figures in front of us. That's all I want to say.
Well said. Yeah, we shouldn't be expected just to have something before us for a few moments and rubber stamp it. So we need to.
I agree. I can't remember. I don't know why we went down 1,100 feet versus 700-800 feet. But I just remember one thing I do remember is that I saw Tahone's well logs, and I was quite impressed with that. And they probably used some of that. But again, you guys are right. There should be a presentation to the entire board to see what we're spending this money on.
Well, I think, Frank, one thing that wasn't considered is you got to remember we can't be compared to Bakersfield. Right now, they're going through Sigma and complete ramp downs numbers and getting adjudicated, however they're going to do their deal. But for us, we've already been there, done that. We're all metered now. Actually, this water table should be coming up, if anything at all. I mean, not going down. So it's hard to say, well, Tahone drilled them at 900 feet. That might have been back when things weren't monitored and we were in an overdraft.
Oh, Gary, you got to remember something. This is not for us to pull entitlement today. This is the 220,000 acre feet of water that Met's going to put in the ground. See, they better, when they put 220,000 acre feet of water, there better be a rise in the table. Well, there's going to be another problem. So, can staff or somebody correct me on that?
Yes, there will be as water goes in, there will be an increase in the groundwater surface elevation. Yes.
Anyway, you guys, your points are, as a committee member, chair, I'm not going to vote on this tonight until you guys can give the rest of the board the presentation.
Okay, we'll put, this is Dwayne, we'll put together a staff presentation that is very similar to the one that was presented to the committee, and we'll have all the consultants on the line to be able to give that presentation and answer any questions that the board may have.
There is one point I would like to make.
Oh, go ahead, Keith.
Thank you. Our committee had it explained to us that we are not pumping from a static water table during operation of the water bank. During recharge, it will rise, and during extraction, it will fall. And during long periods of drought, it may fall significantly. And that's why we accepted the depth that was recommended.
You know, you're right, Keith. And you know what? Right now we have other things on the agenda. I want to make a motion that we table this to the next meeting so staff can prepare and our consultants to give a presentation that we saw, our committee, here. So, you know, within 2 weeks.
I'll second the motion, Mr. President. George Lane.
Okay, do we have a roll call vote on the motion second made?
To table item 7B2.
Correct.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Jeff Dice.
Yes, the measure passes, and we will consider the same board order in 2 weeks. And now we'll move along. Oh, I'm sorry, Director Donato, you have another item to discuss, or do you? No, I'm sorry, item 7C is the Water Master Committee. Director Paris, do you have a report?
No report unless Dwayne wants to go over the agenda. Or Matt?
Yes, we have an item on the agenda at 7C1, and Matt Knutson will provide a report on that.
All right, thank you, Dwayne. Good evening, board. In your packet on page 84 is a staff report, and attached to that staff report is the resolution number R22-03, which staff is recommending approval of this evening. So just a little background, we presented a lot of the detail of what this resolution covers at our last board meeting, and it has to do with documenting the transfer of funds from the association, Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association, to Avek in exchange for providing replacement water to the basin. If you recall, last month the association presented a replacement water plan to the Water Master at its January Water Master board meeting, and the board did accept and file that plan for replacement water. So what this resolution does, as I said, it documents where Avek will be providing 1,055.13 acre feet that would be released from our West Side Water Bank to the basin. It basically come off of our bank supplies at that project location. And in exchange for that, we would receive $481,113.66 for providing that replacement water. So that's all I have to report tonight, unless you have any questions. But as I said, staff is recommending approval of resolution R22-03.
Matt, how much is that replacement water than an acre foot?
So what the for calendar year 2022, it's right at $500 per acre foot. But on page 86 of your packet, you can see kind of the history of what that replacement water cost has increase from. Back in the 2016, 17, 18, it was at $415 per acre foot. And 2021, it was $498 per acre foot.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Director Lane also moved, Mr. President.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or discussion? If not, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along to item number 8, General Manager's Report.
Yes. This is Dwayne Chisholm, and this is the general manager. And you can see that the 10-day basin quantitative precipitation, and we're going from February 8th to February 18th. You can see they're projecting no rainfall. So that's not good news with regards to that. However, some of the longer term forecasts indicate that we might receive some weather and some precipitation, I should say, later on in the month. Here's our graph. You can see from here, we had a couple of good months, and we've had a couple of poor months, and we're starting off, we're like 9 days in, and we have no precipitation in February. It's very similar to what you saw last year in February. And we got to hope that later in the month provides some relief to this very dry pattern the last 2 months. And this is shown indicative of our situation where we've started out very wet, and then we've taken a very sharp right turn, and we're right about average, or a little bit above average for this time of year. The good news is we did a manual survey on the 2nd of February, actually it was February 1st, and they had 48 inches of snow depth, which is a very good snow depth, even at this particular time. So it's about 19 inches of water is the equivalent of that snow depth. That's a little over 109% of average. And but as you can see here, we need to have those storms returned in late February, early March, in order to maintain those levels and not have that snow melt off. So that's where we're looking at as far as the state weather. Looking at our drought map, you can see things are considerably better than they were. We're in a kind of a severe to moderate drought, as opposed to extremely dire drought situation that we were in a couple of months ago. Also, on the good news side, is you can see some of our reservoirs around the state are beginning to increase their supplies as we receive that runoff, and then we capture the precipitation that's coming through. You can see that Orville's at 48% of its official capacity, about 78% of average. So it's not doing too bad. And also the San Luis conditions are 59% of historical average and 45% of capacity. Most of this water in here is actually state water, as opposed to the federal project. The other aspect is one of the things that the Department of Water Resources wanted to try and achieve this particular year is to alleviate the very, very low reservoir conditions that they found themselves when they started this year back in October. And you can see here if I can make this work, here's where we were back then. You can see we're very low, very historically low position, and we've moved ourselves up into this location here, which is still on the drier side and still on the lower volume side, but still considerably better than where we were. We hadn't had those 2 wet months. The same holds true here for San Luis Reservoir. As far as our conventional treatment plant, we're still only operating about 11 to 13 million gallons a day flow. Hopefully, once again, we'll see some weather and this will go down a little bit. Also, the east side, as far as geopurification, where our current flow is about 7.7 million gallons a day. West side, we're adding between 0.5 and 0.6. So you can see here we got we're utilizing our bench ranch wells, and so you can see we're running between 8 to 8.5 million gallons a day. And this is our low period, a low demand period. As far as water banking goes, we're putting in a little more water in the east side water bank to offset some of our pumping that we've done from that bank. And you can see that we're running about 6 acre feet per week as a 7-day average of recharge, not much at all. As far as water quality goes, we've collected the first quarter THM samples. We're maintaining all of our water quality standards, and we're beginning to work on the annual report that will be necessary for all of our retail water customers to include in their consumer confidence report, which is basically their water quality report that they provide to their customers. As far as operation and maintenance goes, we're using about 50% of our capacity for groundwater recovery at the present time. We have raw water flow should be going back into the Palmdale Lake in March. And as I mentioned previously, we've increased our east side water bank recharge, and we're currently have a job walk that we're going to go through for an HVAC project upgrade on the west side of the administration building, and then all of our winter treatment plant and feeder maintenance projects are in the process of being completed. As far as our public meetings go, it looks like we got the special redistricting meeting tomorrow evening. We have the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association happening the following day on Thursday. Urban Water Institute conference, it's a Zoom only, it's 2/16. And then the AV Water Master Board meeting is on the 23rd of this month. I will be out of the office on the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and Sunday. Be out of the state in Oregon. With that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Chisholm?
Yeah, I got one. Can you go back to the map where the reservoirs are 40%?
This one or this
right there,
one?
right there, yeah. The one that, yeah. Okay. So, do we have any carryover water in Orville?
We don't have any carryover water in Orville. The only we have about 1,200 acre feet of carryover water from this last year, and that's contained primarily in San Luis Reservoir.
That's what I just asked. I'm sorry, San Luis Reservoir. I mean,
San Luis Reservoir as opposed to Orville. Yes.
I meant San Luis.
Yeah, about 1,200 acre feet.
Okay, so question I got for you. If we don't hit the blue doesn't hit the red line, let's say within 60 days, we're probably not going to be able to take that, are we?
Oh no, that's already been allocated. There's about I think. Let me look at this one here. I can give you Oh, I'm sorry. Pushed the wrong button here. There's a total. I don't have it here. It's about 900,000 acre feet is in storage in San Luis Reservoir, and that amount of water is what provides the carryover water that's available to each contractor, and also contains our 15% Table A allocation. So that's water that's sitting in San Luis Reservoir already. So the DWR is very cautious, especially early in the year, that they don't allocate more than what they have in San Luis, which is across the Delta. Oftentimes, they're not sure if they're going to be able to get, even if they have a lot of water in Lake Orville, if they're going to be able to get that water across the Delta and be able to get it into San Luis Reservoir. So,
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. Item 9, director's reports. Do any of the board members have a report to make? Hearing none, we'll move along to item 10, attorney's report.
Nothing to report, President Dias.
Thank you. Item 11, request for future agenda items.
Mr. President, Director Lane.
Yes.
It's been some time since we've had a financial consultant's report on our investments. Would that be possible sometime in the future?
Oh, yes, certainly. You're right. We used to have them more frequently. Dwayne, can you schedule one in the near future?
Yes.
Thank you.
I got a question. So George, what are we talking about? We have that guy that comes. We have one guy that comes for his own. I don't know if there's a. Do we even have one that's for all our different investments?
Yes, I'll work on getting someone from Wells Fargo to be able to make a presentation with regards to our current investment portfolio.
Okay.
Any more requests for future agenda items? If not, we are ready for item 12, possible closed session. Dwayne, do we have a purpose going in closed session tonight?
Yes, we have a couple of updates on item B and C. Shouldn't take too long.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to go into closed session for items 12B and 12C?
Director Miller, I'll move that.
Thank you.
This is Director Sarsabal, second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes, and we will go into closed session as soon as Holly can make that transition.